About 100,000 flights take off every day all over the world. Usually, they're uneventful and never make the news, safely bringing about 500,000 people to their destinations. But imagine being thousands of feet in the air when a part of the plane engine suddenly fails. There's only one outcome of something so unexpected: death. Unless you have someone like Tammie Shults as flight captain, Tammie would make a few decisions one fateful day that would save the lives of everyone on board the plane, beginning with swapping her flight shift with another pilot. But this story begins much earlier in New Mexico. Tammie Shults was born in November of 1961 in New Mexico. As a teenager in high school, she dreamed of piloting a plane, but was told there were no professional female pilots and that aviation was no place for women. Tammie decided that would not stop her. When she applied as a pilot for the U.S. Air Force several years later, she was first turned down. Eventually, she was accepted into the Navy and would become one of the first female fighter pilots in its history. In Operation Desert Storm of the Gulf War, Tammie flew training missions as an instructor pilot. When she finished her military tour of duty in March 1993, she received several medals for her outstanding performance. Tammie then joined Southwest Airlines as a commercial pilot. April 17, 2018. Southwest Airlines Flight 1380 was a regularly scheduled passenger flight from New York LaGuardia to Dallas, Texas. It had been for the past 18 years. That day, Tammie was not scheduled to fly, but had made a shift swap just days earlier, something that would make all the difference in the events that would unfold. That shift swap resulted in her becoming the commanding captain and Darren Lee Ellisor as the first officer for Flight 1380. No two could have been better equipped for dealing with crazy scenarios. Their combined flight hours, a total of 20,000. Both pilots also had military experience. These two factors would play a significant role in what would occur right after takeoff. That morning, the flight took off as scheduled, with the captain monitoring and the first officer flying. At first, as the plane continued to ascend, everything seemed okay. The aircraft was expected to stop climbing at 38,000 feet, something it always did. But at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, at 30,000 feet, there was a sudden explosion. Both pilots thought they had been hit by another plane. They instinctively grabbed the controls and tried to level the wings. As they tried to determine what was happening, they realized a part of the engine had exploded. The left engine suddenly failed, and multiple system failures followed. The cabin began to experience rapid depressurization. Oxygen masks were released to panicked passengers and crew. The aircraft began to shudder. Smoke filled the cockpit. Condensation appeared on all surfaces due to the sudden depressurization. Tammie and the first officer could hardly read the flight instruments because of the intense shaking. Worse, they could barely hear each other or the sound of their own voices because the aircraft was roaring so loudly. The plane became difficult to control because of the extensive damage. Both pilots decided that Tammie should take over, while the first officer would carry out the emergency checklist. Tammie started going over facts from past crashes that she had read about as she tried to decide what options they had. Initially, she planned on a long approach by making sure the crew completed all the emergency checklists. But the pilots got a call from the flight attendant. Flying debris from the explosion had struck the wing and the fuselage and had damaged a left side window at row 14. The window had blown out. The damage to the window was what had caused the cabin to rapidly lose pressure. But that was not the worst part. As the crew moved through the plane to make sure everyone was okay, they found that the passenger in row 14 had been sucked partway out the broken window and was badly injured. The pilots were asked to slow down so that the female passenger could be pulled back inside. As the flight captain and first officer tried to slow the aircraft down, the victim was pulled inside and passengers nearby began to perform CPR. During the chaos in the main cabin, Tammie contacted the air traffic control for a course to the nearest airport. The traffic controller tried to understand what was going on. Was there a fire in the plane? Tammie calmly replied, "No, it's not on fire, but part of it is missing." She said, "There's a hole and, someone went out." She decided that Philadelphia Airport was best equipped for the emergency they were facing. That would be their destination. It would be the best way to ensure that everyone survived. But if they landed too fast, they risked blowing out the tires. A decision needed to be made quickly. Tammie wasted no time. With injured passengers on her mind, she decided to speed up the approach and expedite the landing. As the aircraft descended into Philadelphia, their new destination, the crisis came to an end. Tammie's decision to waste no time in steering the plane into descent towards safety and her cool composure throughout the ordeal saved the lives of the people on board. Tammie Shults and her first officer, Darren Ellisor, heroically and successfully landed the aircraft, saving the lives of 148 people on board. Only one passenger died that day, while 7 others suffered only minor injuries. Investigators evaluating what had occurred noted that the death toll would have been much higher had it not been for the captain's quick thinking. For her quick thinking, her bravery under extenuating circumstances thousands of feet in the air, Captain Tammie Shults was a true hero.